Thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. I'm Jim Cardle. We're moving into the summer vacation and summer doldrums period of the year here at the beginning of July, but it doesn't really seem to be affecting the nation's economic performance or the Texas economy much. In fact, employment numbers came out last week and things continue to be going in the right direction, according to Texas Insider's Economic Council Chairman Marc Flaster. What's the outlook for the duration of the year, and in particular, are politics impacting, or will they impact too much of our economic activity during the rest of the year? We're pleased to be able to visit with Marc Flaster today. Well, Marc Flaster, Chairman of the Texas Insider Council of Economic Advisors, we appreciate you coming by and taking a minute out of your day to visit with us.
Jim, you know, it's always my pleasure. The only thing I can say this time is that it was an effort to get here in 100-degree heat.
There you go. We're getting into the summer doldrums, and I know you got a plane to catch, Marc, after spending a couple days in Texas. Let me jump right into it. You have been at a bankers conference as well as traveling around the state this week. You have been writing for us. In particular, I wanted to get your opinion on some of the state of our nation's employment situation, and the economic and employment numbers came out last week. Let's start with a bigger 30,000-foot view, perhaps. What did you see in last week's employment figures, and what's the general state of the economy going into the third quarter of the year here?
Well, the first thing I think that, as we mentioned or chatted just briefly earlier, is that the papers are overwhelmed with data, counting data, and comparing. Is this number 1/10 of a digit higher than or lower than the last digit report? And that's not where our economy is. It's not employment. People are working today, and they're earning a living in some manner, but they're not employed by large companies or a company that has a payroll, that has payroll insurance, that has reports to the state of how many people are on in their company at any one time. And so you have this whole resource of activity that is outside the limits of the counters. But that doesn't mean...
At the Labor Department,
so to
speak,
yeah.
yes.
But that doesn't mean that the economy is not supporting an awful lot of people at a very high level. And so where I look at and I say, well, where's the spending going? And if people are unemployed and have no income, they're not spending. So if the spending levels are high, that means people do have access to revenue for the return of what they're doing. Maybe it's two men in a truck, I don't know, but there's definitely income and revenues being received. A lot of it's being received in our new cloud-based economy, which is outside something that they haven't figured out. How do I capture that? Because you don't have a company that is reporting numericals every moment. So then we look and say, well, where's the spending going? And that's the problem in dealing with the economy, is the spending has changed dramatically.
I know in the last column you wrote for us a week ago, you talked about how goods flow back and forth to Mexico numerous times before they're finally put into an automobile. It's the flow of manufacturing and the new type of economic activity you're talking about.
Here's a threat. You just mentioned that. I don't know, but here's a real threat to our economy.
Okay.
We generate or build, sell. That's something like 16 to 17 million cars a year.
Okay.
And all those have engines in them that have pistons, and they burn oil and gas.
Yes.
And the coming wave is a armature with a bunch of wire around it.
Really? Batteries?
And a battery and a electric motor.
Yes.
And so as we drive around anywhere, take Austin,
yes.
San Antonio, pick a city in Texas, be Houston or Dallas or New York or anywhere, you can't drive or walk very far before passing some auto repair shop. And and they're all fixing some part of that car that has to do with what's under the hood. It's not the wheel, it's not a dent, although it accumulates rapidly, but it has to do with the engine. Well, if you're going to turn the engine into an electric motor, It has a lot fewer moving parts, and there's no repair. You throw that one away and you put a new one in.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And the employment roles for the auto industry, not only directly, but all the things I mentioned indirectly, will not just decline, it will collapse.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's missing now, which is going to take some years to get in place, is that when you drive up and down the street here, if you can make any progress in Austin on 15th Street,
Yes.
or Brazos or Guadalupe,
Uh-huh.
is that there's no place to get recharged.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Folks, I want to thank you again for joining us for this edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. We're visiting with Texas Insider Economic Council Chairman Marc Flaster. Marc, I want to go back to the point you were making, and I apologize if I cut you off, but you were saying it's not necessarily the employment numbers, but the economic activity and the churning of dollars.
That's where the monies get spent. So what we're seeing happening is that we have let's say a quadrant of our population
Okay.
that is moved on in their years and is now more retirement focused.
Okay.
I'll call that. And so they're moving outside the central cities. They're moving to areas where there is, it could be more rural, but not necessarily. It's just there's less congestion. They may live in a congested atmosphere in that they don't have a home, they have an apartment or a condo, but they're not in the hubbub. Okay, so and the cost where they're moving to is going to be less in terms of relative to their available resources.
Okay.
Then you have another group, and this all goes Generation X, millennials, wherever you want to call them, who want to live where the action is, and their opportunities for employment is also there, but they don't want to be burdened like our parents were, or I am, with things. They want to do things. They don't want to have things.
No mortgage, no car payment. They
Well,
can
it's just-
rent an Uber.
They rent. They use the transportation networks, whether it be Uber or subways or buses. They're more interested in life experiences, so they're very active in terms of traveling places and going places. Not that the Flaster family isn't going all the time, but
Right.
I suspect we're at a little different level.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
that comes with well, anyway.
It's
but-
not what it used to be, that's for
but
sure.
this is completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. The idea of that there were things that were going to be available to you as you progress in your economic history and rewards are waiting for. There's no waiting. I want it now, and I'm willing to I'll pay for it now, but I'll give up other things. So what we're reading, and especially in cities where I live in the city, New York, is people living 3-4 in an apartment that was only built for one.
Really?
So they take a one-bedroom apartment, maybe even not a studio, and they put up a
Bunk bed.
a
Upstairs.
wall, a screen, and it's a place to sleep. It's not a place to live,
Gotcha. Interesting.
and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And so in that way, they reduce their cost in sharing the rent. In many cases, these are people who are
Interesting.
are not personal friends. They've just been found
Really?
somebody someplace.
Friend of a friend of a friend.
Or they just advertise and take people in.
Interesting.
Airbnb
Yeah.
is another example of this, and I never do that, but people don't seem to be. They say, "Well, I've got this real estate here, I live in it, but to gain a little, there's your economy." They're not on anybody's payroll, yet they've got income,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using that for a purpose. And this is completely different from all the economic wizards who are out there counting this. And they're bean counters.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there, oh, well, there's 18 now, but it was 17 last time. Oh, that's percentage of this. That is completely absurd. That's not where we are. It's not where we're going. And it doesn't give any indication of the development and excitement that generates business and business activity. The other thing that's missing in these discussions that we hear from those that are, who are asked, is that the the train that got us here is not only stalled, it's rusting.
Okay.
Okay, and there's a whole new
Interesting.
variety of avenues that are being explored and explored very quickly. So we're seeing a tremendous turnover. The easiest place I could give you as an example, or and it's not fair, is restaurants. Just here in Austin.
Okay.
I will assure you, next time I come back, any street you want to come down, that the restaurants, that at least 2 to 5 of the restaurants that are on that street are no longer there.
Really?
Okay, and it has to do, they either have the wrong product, they weren't able to advertise correctly, or the lousy service, but they did something that didn't gravitate to a consistent
For the long-term economic viability of their
for
concern.
people to come back and shop there again and again. And so what we're seeing is in the cloud-based industries is experimentation. And it's everywhere. That's a good word for it. And we see it everywhere. And we also see it in advertising. We see advertising companies hiring people who have no background in advertising, no background in anything.
But they know the internet and they know
No.
computers.
They have an idea, a way to approach something completely different than the people who've been in that business for the last 15 or 20 years. And so I can't take my mind and turn it around to think that way.
Yes.
So I've got to go out and find people. So I see advertisements in the paper, on the TV, and I say, what was where are you going? What was the product? What is the product? What are you trying to tell me? It doesn't make sense to me. It's experiments.
Yeah.
It's experimental. They're using something from something. They say maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I said, but if it works, then okay, that guy stays or person stays. If it doesn't work, then they're gone and we'll find something else. So we have employment that's constantly turning over. That's my point on the employment payroll. It's hard to pin it down and say it's numerically based.
Talking about employment, I want to pivot a little bit if I can and focus. We could talk about your fascinating analysis all day long, but let's focus on the Texas economy. I know you are constantly visiting with bankers across the state. What's the word nationally on how the Texas economy is going? What do you see these days?
Well, I frequent here often, and very often. And I'm always excited to be here because Texas is an exciting place. It's growing. It has people who have a can-do attitude. It still has rural areas that you can drive through and see the big sky, how it used to be. And so you can be congested here in Austin and quickly drive to a community like where I was.
Be in the country.
In
Bastrop.
Lost Pines, Bastrop, where you're out in the middle of nowhere. And be it moving at 80 miles an hour on the highway. So,
Yes,
wow,
yes.
that was quite a
For a New York City boy.
Right. I said I was going too slow. People were passing. I said, I kept on looking at the speedometer. I said, gee, I'm doing 60. Isn't that fast enough? I said,
So Texas is going strong, is
it's
what
very,
you're saying.
very strong. And businesses are moving here. And they're moving here. A lot of what is helping Texas, unfortunately, is that areas of the Northeast and the Midwest that have been demonstrated a area for seasoning and growth. New York, Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, they've taxed themselves to support a very, very progressive and liberal presentation to their people. That have caused a lot of businesses to say, I can't employ people and have a profit if I stay here.
Interesting.
I may find the people I need. So there was an article that I read not too long ago of companies that are leaving San Francisco after they built their business, after they found their people, and say, we got a business, we have people that are helping us build and develop this business, but we can't stay here. We can't make any money.
So off they go to Texas.
So many of them are coming here.
Yeah.
And as I said to you earlier, the bad part about it is those people that are coming here wear blue overcoats.
Yes, the political aspect. Well, folks, I want to Thank you again. We're visiting with Marc Flaster, Texas Insiders Economic Council Chairman. I want to move to politics, Marc, and let you catch your airplane here real quick. What is the concerns or the outlook, and how is Wall Street right now dealing with Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump going back and forth, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Does Wall Street have any particular outlook in this summer doldrum period where the presidential campaign is starting to actually occur?
Well, my first comment is that the Democrats have started their campaign for who to be their
nominee,
yeah, and their standard bearer so early in the cycle. And the amount of money, the fact you've got 23, I think at the last count, we had one leave. And
one dropped out.
One come back in. I won't pass that comment. But
Okay.
Anyway, but it looks like, from my point of view, that the candidates that will be at the
Still running in the home stretch, maybe.
They'll still be there, as I say, at the bar, are going to be the ones that have any money left. And it won't be the ones that may have the better program or planning, because it's so expensive to continue to be marketing yourself and advertising and traveling and speaking. And Elizabeth Warren has done something, and a couple of others have done something that is helping them preserve their money. They're doing more activity on the internet. Beto says, I got to be out on the street. I want to talk to the people. Well, every time you get in the car or move somewhere, there's transportation costs and all the support that goes with them, and he has to pay for that, and the money is not supporting that. So he'll be gone. And
so it's becoming more expensive. You all, from an industry perspective, are watching that. How about in terms of economic policy proposals, to the extent that we're being offered? Big one the other day was student debt relief, free college.
These have nothing to do with our economy. And there was I'll send it to you. I clipped it out, and
Okay.
the New York Times did an art Times, the journal. Can't remember, but it was on Kalamazoo, Michigan,
Okay.
and what free schooling had done.
Really?
And it was a disaster.
And I'm guessing it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, these are they're all looking for votes, and you're not going to be able to tell people, or to get people to vote for you, if you tell them that things are going to be better in the future. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take care of the problems, not the problems. We're going to take care of your concerns at the present. We'll pay for all your health care. We'll pay for all your education. We'll pay for everything. Everything. There'll be no money. Nothing no out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, you're going to live like a millionaire or millionaires for all your remaining days. Okay.
And how is it paid for?
That's not going to go anywhere.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha. Well, I'm going to leave it there. And talking about remaining days, you've got to get on the road and make a mile today. But we appreciate, Marc Flaster, you coming in and sharing your thoughts with us.
It's always my pleasure. I'm glad I'm always pleased to be here. And it turns out the more frequently I'm here, the more I'm getting to know. So.
Excellent.
About how things work in Texas.
Appreciate you coming by. And folks, we appreciate you joining us for this edition of the Texas Insider TV show, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. As we always say, thanks for joining us, and remember, you're either an insider or you're not. I'm Jim Cardle.